Last week, Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0 Thrice Upon a Time came out on Amazon Prime worldwide, and when I finished the series 2 years ago, I sort of knew what the Rebuild trilogy was, but I thought it was just a remake of the original series, right? Because you do that with something as popular as Evangelion. Turns out, I found out 3 weeks ago that it's not that at all, and after the first movie, it's a completely separate thing that has a whole new story. So, over the last week and a half, I've sat through, binged, watched, sat on them, thought about them, and now today, I'm going to put my media degree to some use and review the Rebuild movies. Let's get into it. I've had to look up the names of the movies because I just keep mixing them up together. I thought the first one was Advance. It's Redo, because of course you can't redo. Oh, wait, no, You're Alone. You cannot redo the third. Evangelion 1.11. You are not alone, for I am here with you. This movie is good. But there's a big thing to this movie. It is about an hour and a half long, and it is shot for shot, essentially, the original 6 episodes of the series, except the water's red now, which is a difference. That's the only real change, honestly. Yeah. I like the first 6 episodes of Evangelion a lot, and I like this film a lot. But that is exactly what the film is. It's just the first 6 episodes of Evangelion. I actually think it's paced a bit better in the movie because it's obviously, you get one full line through and it's sort of written cohesively with that in mind, right? But a lot of it is just like better animation, it looks great, it sounds great. The soundtrack for all of these films is Chef's Kiss brilliant. And I guess I'll touch on this here because I haven't got much to really say about 1.11 except for the fact that it's good. The dub is decent in all of these films. We watched 2 separate dubs technically because the Amazon Prime streaming thing redubbed them all, but there wasn't that many changes to the cast and whatever. They all returning from either the Funimation dub of the Rebuild movies or the original ATV dub from 1997, I think it was, when the original series was dubbed. The dub's really good. I personally prefer the Funimation dub to the ADV people they brought back for the Amazon Prime dub, but that's probably because, I just sort of was used to them at that point. They're changing it for the 4th movie is a bit of a shock to the system, you know what I mean? I gotta say, Spike Spencer as Shinji, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But there's a part of me that wonders why Spike Spencer never went on to be Johnny Young Bosch levels of good, because brother, he is fucking fantastic in all of these roles. It's one role, 4 films and the series, and Christ, the Netflix dub that I watched when I watched Evangelion originally was good, and it's a great dub. I think Ray Chase as Gendo is absolutely that's inspired casting. That's just fantastic. I think that's better than any of the people who are doing it in the movies for Gendo. But I gotta say, it's that dub's really good, but brother, these original cast members, when it comes to Tiffany Grant as Asuka, Spike Spencer as Shinji, Alison Keith as Misato too, brilliant. I also they changed this one for the 4th movie, but I will also say Colleen Clinkenbeard as Ritsuko Akagi. Oh, that's also inspired casting. Ray is sort of I would talk about Ray's acting, but it's kind of hard to talk about Ray. It's kind of like judging Ryan Gosling because they're very one note, right? And that's kind of the entire point of the character. But you can judge the nuances and stuff, and the dub in general is really good. Things with a lot of money tend to have good dubs. It's why most shonen shows have great dubs too, because there's a lot of money and a lot of backing behind it. I will say they're releasing the Blu-ray, I think it's of the original series, and we don't know if they're going to dub that or not. Again, we don't know anything about that yet. I'm recording it before that goes up, but I'm absolutely going to buy that, and if it's the ADV dub, I'm totally going to rewatch the show with that, because, brother, yes please, more Evangelion, baby! Also, the ending of this movie being the whole Ray, smiling gimmick that they do in the show for the 6th episode, making it the ending of this movie is a really clever choice because it really lends that emotional baggage that you want it to from the show, but you just don't really get in the show because you sort of just move on to the next episode. But having a 10-minute credits roll after it with a song backing it, it's just brilliant to make that sort of moment really poignant. Evangelion 2.22, You Cannot Advance. This film is pretty much perfect, actually. This is like, it's weird to say, right? I love these rebuild films. Spoiler, I guess, right? I love these films in general. But I don't know what it is, man. 2.22 is just, it's so good. It's just amazing. This movie in general has to do a lot of heavy lifting because it introduces Asuka, introduces Mario. It doesn't get much play really until never. But they're going to introduce her. They're going to really sort of sell the Asuka dynamic with Shinji, which took a solid couple episodes in the show. And then also, by the end of it, they seem to give Asuka an actual decent arc, which it's a shock to me how well they realize her character and her arc of not being just a bitchy tsundere in 2 hours compared to over the course of, 18 episodes in the show she's in it. So, like, man, that's a testament how good this film is. And granted, would I think that if I didn't know the character already? Who knows, right? I know who Asuka is. I know her deal. It's... maybe it's easier for me to sort of fill that arc in myself now that I know her already, but I can't stop that. That's something it's just I can't help that, really. But the scene at the end where she's talking to Misato on the lift up to the test Eva, like, I know I've seen criticisms of that being like, oh, she's well adjusted or whatever. I'm like, no, it's just her feeling more at home now, and Misato being that sort of figure, the mother figure that she is to Shinji as well as her now, and it's like, it's a nice arc, really. It's nice going from her standing on top of the Eva just being an absolute bitch, and then to her being a great character. But her being a bitch is why also we like Asuka. And that's why she's one of my favourite characters, and I have a figure of her up there somewhere, if you can see. Yeah, I love her. She's great. This is the film where they really diverge from the anime, right? And not for the better. That sounds bad, because Evangelion is the peak of media storytelling, but it's still really good here. I don't know if I said this, but this film is, like, just nigh on perfect, and is probably one of my favourite films ever, straight up. I really like this film quite a bit. In this film, they even do, like, a mini End of Eva fight, or, the End of Eva fight where Asuka is against the mass-produced, Evas, yeah. That's, like, one of the best fights in anime. I stand by that. That's a fucking incredible scene. In this movie, they drop into the same arena, and then the ending takes place in their arena, and it's like, oh man, you fucking knew what you were doing. You clutched at my heartstrings with that one. Oh, and also the ending, man. The ending! After I came out of this movie and went downstairs and I thought about it while I was in there, it was like, I had convinced myself over the last year and a half, 2 years, that I didn't really like movies too much anymore. Mostly because the 2-ish hour runtime wasn't enough time for me to get fully invested into stories and characters and all that stuff. And really, this movie is so good that it swayed me back into thinking, man, maybe I should give movies a shot again. That's how good this movie is. That's how much I like it. It's so good. Nothing has hit that deep since La La Land. And La La Land was the film that got me to decide I'm going to study media and film in university and start to critique these things. Like, genuinely, I fucking love this movie. It is incredible. It is pure kinostasia. That Scarlet Necklace video isn't out yet, so that would have been explained in Karen. So that's a 3.33 you cannot redo. This film's good. It's good too. They're all pretty good, but this one is... I mean, it has to come after what is one of my now favourite films ever. So it was never going to be as good. But also, I actually do have some problems with this movie we can talk about. I love the intro. I will say that much. The intro is incredible. The whole in space, and you gotta, like, they latch onto whatever the fuck that is, and then claim, like, I think EVA Unit 1, right, is what it was. And, man, that's just, oh, mwah, love that. That's just a great intro, great music, great animation, great fight. Oh, it's just all pure brilliant. Like, it's just, oh, it's amazing. And also, I also love it's a trope it is with media, but, like, when you're treated as you are the character, you learn things as they learn things. I really like that a lot in media, so I like it here too when Shinji knows nothing after this 14-year time skip and we have to learn alongside him. Oh, and while we're talking about good things, Asuka's design in this movie is just peak character design, right? When we're talking peak character design, I'm talking Asuka in 3.33, Tifa Lockhart, and that's really kind of it. Maybe Neku from The World's End With You, but okay. Let's start talking about my problems with it. Okay, let's start talking about my problems with the movie now. 3x3 is this real issue where it feels like A, it's half a movie, and B, there are contrivances to be made for the plot, right? And I'm never one to sort of judge contrivances because most of the time they're pretty nitpicky. A lot when you talk about contrivances and whatever, like, oh, what a coincidence he's there. Like, what you want? Like the most boring fucking film ever? Of course he has to be there. It's, that's a thing. People do that and I hate that. So I don't feel nice doing this, but I really, really didn't like how neither Masato or Sakura or Ritsuko or anyone would just tell Shinji what the fuck was going on. So then he leave with Rei. Everything outside of that scene, when he jumps onto the hand and leaves, and she's like, "Don't go," or whatever, "Don't get any either." Everything outside of that scene, after and before, was great, but that one thing, I'm like, that felt like you had to say that and do that because we had to have a movie here. You felt like you did that because we needed to have a story to tell here. Okay, whatever. And the next, 90 minutes of the movie are just spectacular. Love it. Everything. I'm a big fan of pianos. You might not know this about me. I love pianos. I'm a big fan of musicals, too. So, they start playing classical music on this piano and it's in sync, and my favorite episode of the anime is the dancing episode of Eva as well. So it's oh my god, they're doing that but with piano. Oh, I play piano, that's Kino. And right at the end of this movie then they have another one where it's they've built up for the last hour and a half that Shinji's only trustworthy companion is Kaoru, right? And that's why he gets in the Eva with Kaoru to do the thing at the end. And then when Kaoru, bites the bullet, before biting the bullet, he tells him to not do the thing, to stop doing it. Shinji continues to do it. And then that's another one for me where it's oh man, that felt like we needed to have a movie here, so you did that. That sucks. But also it's Evangelion, so any excuse for me to get more of Evangelion I'm gonna take, but I don't like that decision. Only those two things at the start and at the end of the movie are the two things I really, really don't like about the trilogy. Outside of that, this quadrilogy, whatever the hell it's called, is great, genuinely. But yeah, those two things, not a big fan. Even if there was just some conflict, where he would sit there and think, oh man, Kaoru said no, but Gendo's saying yes. What am I gonna do? Who do I trust, If you had that moment and he's I don't know, I'm just here, I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm cool, that would make me feel a lot better, but isn't this just Kaoru says no, Shinji is upset, and then just carries on doing it. I'm show us that conflict, maybe? If you need an excuse for a fourth movie, just, show us that. This entire movie is just set up for 3.0, 1.0 anyway. Genuinely. It's literally hey, we need to give Kaoru and Rei, characters and flesh them out a lot more, so we need to do this entire movie. Cool. And then wait 8 years for the sequel. That must have been rough. I had to wait a week to watch it. Ooh, that's rough. That is rough. I had to wait 8 years for that? God, I feel bad for them. However much this movie is half of a movie, I'm kind of excited for the other half, so I don't really, mind that it's half a movie. Half of my favorite game series is half of games, Trails. It's just every first entry is essentially set up for the second entry in that series. So I don't really mind setup too much, so I kind of like it. It's still a 9 out of 10 for me, Okay, so here's the thing. I haven't got note for 3.0, 1.0. I'm just gonna rant to the camera and hope it comes out in some sort of cohesive format. Let's go. 3.0 plus 1.0, Thrice Upon a Time, is, and I don't say this lightly, it is a achievement in cinema. Honestly, it is. It's. This seems preachy. I don't even think that the film I'm going to compare it to is that good, but just for the metaphor's sake, I think this is anime Citizen Kane. Like, if I had to just put it into a metaphor for you, it's once again Evangelion, just proving that it is the pinnacle of the medium and just the best of what it does. Right? I think everything here is just spectacular. I walked out of 2.0 saying, like, oh, this is one of my favourite films ever. It might be top 3 favourite films. This might be top 1. Like, genuinely, like, Thrice Upon a Time is so good. Like, it's almost hard to, like, put into words how good it is, because it just succeeds on every front, right? The soundtrack's fantastic, the animation's fantastic, the story is fantastic, the nuanced themes are fantastic. Hell, the sound design is fantastic. There's nothing here that falls flat in, and when I mean fall flat, nothing here even, like, I don't know, has a lace undone. Like, it's running like a fucking Usain Bolt at full speed. It is just perfect. Abso-fucking-lutely perfect. And again, I've talked about the intro to these movies before, each one, right? They're all really good. But this one in particular, when they're in Paris, like, oh my god, that is like a fucking set piece, dog. That is a set piece. That is so good. The ending to this film too, right? Like the last sort of what feels like 40 minutes, and it probably is about that long too, where they are just going through the backstory of Gendo Ikari, and just the moment when they have the fight in the set, it turns out, as wherever, and then Gendo just goes, we can't solve this or whatever, and they just go, yeah, sure, and they put the spears down, and then they have the first conversation, because you can't solve this fight with fighting, you have to just talk it out. That is so fucking powerful. Like, that is so good. You have no idea. That is just amazing. God, I love that. And then, like, everything they talk about with Gendo after that, it's just like, man, I get it. I get your issues. I get everything you're going through. This sucks. I kind of feel bad for what is literally the worst father in all of media. Again, when they finish explaining it and Shinji hands him the fucking music player, and he gets off the metaphorical train, which is obviously the vehicle we've seen Shinji in his, Mind Palace for the last 3 movies and the entire series and movie. That's just, it's so powerful. Like, it is. It's just a moment, And then Shinji takes over, and then it just essentially every piece of the jigsaw starts falling into place, and then they start revealing everything about how it was always a sequel, and then they have the fucking intro cards, or the preview cards, I think it is, to every Evangelion episode rewind while he's talking to Rei, and, like, the end of Evangelion scene is repeated with Asuka. That one scene where Mari essentially just gets confirmed as this omnipotent being who understands it's a time loop and shit, and it's just like, what the fuck? It's so good. It's so good. And Shinji then just goes and creates, like, the new timeline. It's just perfect. Oh, also, I love at the end when they do the whole, like, everything's wiping out. They go from, like, animated to not colored to storyboards to animation cells. That's very good. I think that's a nod to the end of the series, right? Because, like, I remember people saying there was a budget constraint or whatever. Firm believer it's a thematic thing more than budget. Even if it was budget, that's pretty cool thematic stuff to do. And they do that style for Gendo's backstory and for the end of the timeline stuff. It's really good. And the final scene when they're at the train station, everyone's just there in the perfect timeline, but they don't know each other. And then they run away and they cut to real life, and the Hikaru Utada banger plays. And I've been debating if it's just my favourite film ever. Like, straight up. It's just so good. It's hard to find ways of saying things are good without sounding, dumb. But it is that good. through the credits, I was talking to my buddy Sam, who I was watching it with. I said, seminal pieces of media, and I was going to say seminal pieces of media to you as a human being, right? And I was going to be how Evangelion, this film, was probably one of those for me. He stopped me and was like, yeah, we were here. We were here watching this fucking piece of media. And it's like, yeah, we were there minute one, watching anime's Citizen Kane, for lack of a better analogy. And it's just, it's so good. But I think this film is genuinely like a really emotional point for me, because to get a bit deep for a second, recently I've been struggling to get into media. A lot of the time I've been struggling to really get invested in the same way I did with, some of my favorite things. I have like Persona 5 Royal and Final Fantasy 7 Remake or Trails. I struggle to get excited about things that I'm playing or watching, and then this rolls along, and like for the entire credits, I just couldn't speak. I was literally speechless until about 6 minutes into the credits. Thrice Upon a Time is just, it's perfection, straight up. I can't think of a better word. I can't think of a thing, really, wrong with it. It's so good. Anyway, that's the Rebuild reviewed. I kind of ranted for a bit. I don't know if it was any good. Please tell me if it was any good in the comments down below. But apart from that, there's nothing else I can really say. This is technically a monthly media run for the month too, so haha, get fucked, I didn't miss a month. But I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you lot on the other side. Peace.